3rd gen suspension upgrades, rear, Detroit speed.
Hey, what's up, Camaro family? It's Scott with IROC Daily, and we're down here in Gilroy, California. I'm getting ready to install some Detroit speed rear suspension parts on the IROC. We got them all laid out here. We got some shocks, some springs, some Swivel-Link kit, a sway bar, and a Panhard bar or a track bar. To help us do all that, we have Jason, who's the owner of EC Auto. And Jason's going to tell us a little bit more about why these aftermarket parts are so much better than the stock parts. So Jason, why would someone want to spend money on an aftermarket sway bar?
Typically, aftermarket sway bars are going to be a larger diameter than the factory sway bars. In this example with the IROC suspension package, this is a 15/16 or whatever that is in metric, because 80s, so I'm sure it's metric. This one over here from Detroit Speed is a 1-inch tubular sway bar. So we're going to gain a little bit of rigidity when we go cornering, less body roll and whatnot.
And how about a Panhard bar or a track bar?
I think in this application, the biggest benefit from the track bar is going to be the adjustability. So in this car, we're also doing some drop springs, which we'll get to in a minute, but when you change where the suspension sits, you're going to need to be able to adjust the rear end to get it centered back up into the car. So this one's adjustable. It also is a tubular design, unlike the stamped steel piece up here that is a little bit weaker. So you might get some flex in the stock one, where this one you're not going to have the flex.
And how about these Swivel-Links?
The Swivel-Links are really similar to the track bar in the benefits of getting away from this stamped steel piece here and going to the tubular one, and also the adjustability. The adjustability in this is going to help you to adjust the pinion angle and compensate for anything that might be off there once the car gets lowered, or adjust anything.
So this is the lower control arm off of the IROC, and what Jason didn't mention in the video was that the Detroit Speed Swivel-Link key feature on it is that it not only is it adjustable like he mentioned, but also the other end is a swivel, so it's actually a swiveling link. So the key part of it is that it actually swivels. So when the suspension is going up and down, it doesn't just go up and down, straight up and down, it actually rotates and twists. And the stock lower control arm doesn't allow any twisting, so it's in bind all the time. So the Detroit Speed lower control arm actually has a swivel, so it allows full articulation. So as the rear suspension is going back and forth, it's not binding at all. It gives a nice smooth ride. I put many miles on it already. This is a late addition to the video. So, it's a great performing part, and it's one of the key parts of the rear suspension for Detroit Speed. So you can see that this lower control arm is just one solid piece, stamped steel, and it's got this bracket welded, or not welded, but this bracket's bolted in there. I've seen this bolted in, this is 86 lower control arm, so I don't know what years didn't come with these. This might just be used for stiffening the making it more rigid, but I've seen a bunch of other cars, later cars, that have the holes drilled, but no bracket in there for stiffening. But this is a stock part, and I'm glad that it's not on the car anymore. So now we got the Detroit Speed part on there. Thanks a lot.
For the shocks and the springs, well, the original springs from 1986 gotta be tired. We don't really like that ride height anyways. And how about shocks? How long are shocks supposed to last for?
Well, that depends on where you live. I think in California, you're got what, like a month or two with these roads around here?
Oh, wonderful Gavin Newsom, yes. A pothole city. All right, well, as we start to do that, we'll keep you updated. So we're getting ready to start taking parts off the car. And this isn't a huge job, but it's good to have a plan. So, Jason, what is the plan? What order of operations are we going to take?
What makes sense to me is blowing the rear tires off, knocking the sway bar off, pulling the track bar, dropping the shocks and then the springs, and then just kind of doing the reverse to get it back together. Obviously, we're going to have to do the links before we can go right back together. It's a huge benefit doing everything on a rack. We don't have to work on our back, which is pretty convenient.
But if you don't have a rack, we don't want to hear any complaints. Get down on the ground and get to work.
But be safe, use jack stands.
Let's go on. Go. So you can take it off.
You didn't record when I kicked it off?
No.
All right.
Go.
Yeah.
All right, that was shaky video, but here's the sway bars sitting next to each other so you can see the differences. So go ahead and pull the shade out, slide it over a little bit and it'll pop out. And then there's the passenger side plug that covers the top of the shock bolt. So pull the plug out after you peel the carpet back, and then you have access to the top shock bolt. And then go over to the driver's side, do the same thing, peel the carpet back a little bit and get to the foam shock plug, the cover for it, and then you have access to the top bolt for the shock. So now you can take the top shock bolt out. To get the Panhard bar off, you take off that big bolt there and then go to the other side and take off that nut and bolt. And then you got the old Panhard bar sitting next to the new one, and the Detroit Speed one has cross-access pivot ends on it to reduce bind. And then we can get the springs out, and you can see the old spring against the new spring. And the new spring actually has a tighter wind on the top, which means it's a progressive spring, and the spring rate will change progressively with the compression of the spring. So that's what makes those much better than the stock spring.
Alright, we're going to remove this old link. Might be a little easier with a hammer. Sometimes you need a bigger hammer. And pop this side out. It's always a good idea when you're not reusing hardware, just put it back where it was. Answers a lot of questions later.
With the lower control arm off, take the measurement between those two bolts and then transfer that measurement to the lower control arm between those two bolts, and that way when you put the arm on, it'll be the same length and you can adjust from there. So you can see here, there's a much better, the Detroit Speed Swivel-Link is much nicer than the original stamped steel lower control arm.
Now we can grab the new one. We're putting the sticker side or the rotating side up at the frame. And then the other side at the axle. You don't really want to hammer this one in because it's a brand new bolt. So you can take your wrench and kind of work it in. I felt it go in the hole. Yeah, let's see. New bolt's a different size, so I didn't have any hardware ready. Cool. Throw the nut on. Now we're not going to tighten any of the suspension links that have rubber joints until the weight of the car is on them, so that they don't get tightened into a bind. We want to make sure that everything's loose until the weight of the car is on there, and then we'll come back and tighten these guys up. Can you see that?
Yep. Hey Jason, any tips we should remember when we're putting one of these back together?
Yes, this little pigtail on the coil spring should sit on the isolator. It's got a little, see how they're at different levels? You want to make sure that that sits there. You don't want it sitting there because then it will cock the spring. So make sure it sits there. Stick it back up in the car. We've got this drooped down right now, so we're gonna just rest it on the bottom while we go up, and we can get them both locked in place. We're clicked in on the top. We're good. Now we can get to the shocks.
Nice.
First, we're going to drop the heart. Okay. So we've already got our washer and bushing on the new shock. We're going to stick it up in place. Up top. Put the bottom in. Put the nut on. And then repeat to the other side.
Just a little tip, how to keep the rear axle up. $10 Home Depot ratchet straps.
Good thing you're videoing this one. Lost the nut. Alright, we're installing the track bar. We opened up the pockets like the instructions said. This one's still a little snug, so we're just gonna give her a little love tap.
Tap, tap, taparoo.
Put some anti-seize on the bolt like the instructions suggested. Got it in there. Give her a little love tap again. And she's in.
Okay, now put the hardware on and don't tighten it up yet until you're all done. And then also put the end links on the sway bar. And also put the hardware on the sway bar here. Now put the rear wheels and tires back on your car and lower it back down to the ground to put the weight of the car on the suspension. And then tighten all the bolts and torque them to the specs that Detroit Speed gave you and all the instructions that come with each one of these parts. And then go have fun with your third gen. It's going to be so much better now. If you like that video, give us a thumbs up. Look forward to a front suspension install video on IROC Daily coming up next week. And drop a comment and let us know what repairs or upgrades you'd like to see us do on IROC Daily. Thanks a lot, and get the tools out.